to introduce the topic for today, design really is a performance lever for both people in place, and more so for commercial space. It's quite important um, because it's not how space looks, it's how it performs. And if it's not, it's decoration. And if you design commercial spaces, you have obligation towards your clients. And so the name COOP was really born from this idea that it's an acronym for the way we go about doing the work that we do. So it's a client comes to us for a concept as a designer. They have a story, they have a backstory, and we need to understand what that is. Often parts of it are important, others not. Um, so we talk about the origin. Where does it sit? What do we need to frame? What do we leave out? The orientation, what we want clients to see and not see, because not everything's on the stage to be seen. It's not important. Some stuff's very important, others are not. And then occupancy, how does this all ladder up to the space that we want people to occupy? And that's all the visual parts, we have 22 senses, not five, and that's a talk on its own. But how do we appe- trigger those senses? Think of just smell, sight, sound, taste, touch. They all matter, and we need to design for those. And that ladders up to performance. So ultimately, a designer needs to understand how these things ladder up to performance so that we can justify the work that we do for our clients. So we have a methodology called envirohacking. We've registered that internationally in UK, USA, Canada, EU, yeah, South Africa, Middle East. And we have a process that's, again, it's all for its own, but it starts like any design, starts with a problem. How do we define it? And we spend a tremendous amount of time on defining the problem, because that is then uh, solving it in the way that matches. Often, the things that a client brings, most of it is actually noise. To be fair, and so we have this diagnostic audit that we go through. Again, not every point is important for every client or every problem, but we look at it from the market that they are in, to the market that they want, to the service that they give currently, to the service that they want to give, right down to all the diagnostics on acoustics, lighting, and those things that affect behavior. And we know that we can't solve everything. We can solve the most important things. And the important things solve the lesser important. So, for example, if we design a space to appeal to the staff, people often leave that out. We spend a lot of time thinking about the kitchen, for example, back a house in a commercial restaurant, how it's lit, and the layout. If staff's happy, they can pick up easily, and they can do their work properly, and this point of sale stations in the right places. Then the interaction and the conversations with the um, the guests are so much happier and joyful and spirited. So for today, I'm just going to highlight four brands. They're not the brands that we've entered for awards. They are the brands that more ready and more specifically explain our process. Um, so it ranges from food to leisure. So talking about Laura Jeans is a brand everyone knows. They came to us with that problem. You can see that it's dated. And amongst multiple things, it's very well. I've highlighted it here: low brand identity, bad budget constraints. The issue is when a client comes to us beyond the point where the brand was in a position to be saved, then the budget is a massive thing because the stores that need it the most can afford it the least. Um, Dated, as I said, cluttered messaging and a legacy patrons. So loyal patrons, but the inability to get new ones. So that we just set it all up with the kind of usual suspects in a color mapping process. It's an algorithm that looks at the heat mapping, but it takes on a tremendous amount of information to understand what people will look at first, second, third, fourth, and so forth. So what people notice and don't notice, you can see there in this particular one, we do many. There's no point to know. You can see on the name there, 81% where the R goes. And orange is that's an interesting color because it sits between yellow and red. And in traffic, those are the colors we use for everything for people to red is, and yellow. Yellow we notice, and it makes us alert. Red is something that doesn't refract over distance. The best color for it. So orange is right there in that spectrum. And then we just played it out. Now there's an interesting thing that's happening in hospitality, in food. We consume spaces different to what we consume products. Uh, so people take the reference on massive blue chip products and they bring it into hospitality. You can't bring black and white into hospitality. It's not a color that appeals to people. It's not, there's nothing like longevity. Things move too quickly. So we just line it all up. We put orange in there as a fictitious. That's the only one that we put in there that doesn't exist, just to illustrate the point. And there just to highlight that. I'm going to go through the slides a bit quickly because I have many. Just to highlight the point of the orange that they owned and for us to frame it and to make it more appealing. So we dialed up certain parts of the colors and we came up with a color we call Glorange. Glorange is orange, which they can only get from one place, so to prevent people from butchering the color. And then we looked at how it stacked up against other brands in the competitor landscape, and then how it could stand on its own. And we spent a lot of time editing out as opposed to putting in. As designers, we tend to kind of want to put in more and more, and we don't take stuff out. So what's the minimum that we could have? Because that's the maximum appeal. We know that we are unable to hold more than 3 or 4 thoughts at a time. Our mind's not wired like that. So the less you look at, the more impactful it is. So played out horizontally. And then we studied multiple ways for multiple parts and gears of this brand to perform, stand on its own. And the parts that didn't, we simply took out. So it was really an editing art exercise the whole time. So I play it out in all the other assets. And then importantly in this slide, it's you can design something quite beautiful, but you can't execute it. Or the budget is a miss. You're missing the budget points. So we designed a product second from the right there that looks like a tile, performs like a tile, goes in the front of the counters, but it's a vinyl. Now, the beauty of a vinyl product, it's got indentations and so forth, so it's quite good. It's agnostic of skill. You can cut it with a Stanley knife. You can cut it in the middle of a mall. There's no noise. You can layer it over existing products. So it's quick, not noisy, cost effective. And so it talks to the budget issues quite effectively. And I just put the slide in again. It's a study that was done. There are hundreds of these studies, literally, but this specific study, paradox of choice, on the left, you see 24 jams. Now, they did this over multiple day pass, multiple areas of FMCG places, and it converted or it attracted 60% of the patrons, converted only 3%. Then they reduced it down to 6 options. It attracted only 40%, so 20% down, but tenfold conversion to 30%. So we met with a client for them to understand that they had too many products, and that less is more. And so they edited that out, and I'll show you in a minute how that plays out, or I can show you here already. Um, what we have in the way we are wired, hardwired, is that the upper limit of our visual zone is the threat zone. It's where we look out for stuff that could hurt us that sit in trees and in the sky. We're hardwired like that. Bear in mind that we've only spent the last 2 or 3% in the built environment. The rest was in nature. So we're still hardwired to see that as a threat zone. So it's not the place to look for food. So that area at the top we use to call out the product at distance is kinetic. I'll show a little video in a moment. And then the decision matrix happens at the bottom. So you walk up to it and think about how you consume anything, product, food, information, how you work. It happens here in your hands at this kind of level. So that happens at the bottom. You can see it there on the counter. So lesser products, easy to consume, easy to understand. And then we knew that because we're doing quite a wild thing, completely left of center, that it would probably be difficult for our clients to accept it. Also because color on a screen, all the color you see here obviously is completely different depending on a device. They're all different. And what they see on the screen was perhaps something that would put them off. And so we built in the corner of our studio, we built a mock-up. They see it in the right-hand corner, full-scale mock-up. And then we invited the whole C-suite to come and look at it. And you can see by the smiles, it was really I think they bought into it in the first 5 minutes. They were just overwhelmed when they walked into a space that was one-to-one. And obviously we used shortcuts in how we made stuff, but the emotional parts of it we all captured. Is this my video? Can't see. It is. How do I get it to play? Oh, it is playing. Oh yeah, you can see at the top. Sorry, at the top you can see. So that's kinetic. That all moves. And the bottom part is static, and that's where you make the choices. So that just rolls the whole time. So I call that a distance. And I think about the way we navigate a space. We look out for stuff that moves in traffic. We watch out other cars, other people. Same in the mall, trolleys, cars, people, trolleys, people. So it's something that we are more alert to than stuff that's static. So that's just a video of kind of how it all landed. We had that also in the studio, so they ended up inviting the whole C-suite, all their franchise partners, and they actually sold the idea then in the end to all of them inside our studio, which was quite nice. We had a lot of people walking through there on many days. The result of this was a 25 to 35% lift in sales, and that sales lift hasn't dropped. So it's it's I it's been quite a remarkable journey to the point that we are now doing a second brand for them based on the same principles. We didn't design that logo, by the way. That's their old logo. So just in case you were wondering what the font. So Rosal Golf Club. Same. If you put sand in a sieve and you kind of shake it around, what's left, the crystals, the bigger stones, are really often similar issues: budget, time, cluttered. Because through time, people tend to put in more; they take nothing else. So that's what we inherited. And again, I'm showing this because design's not about stripping out and just putting in new. And I know as designers we want to do that to put our footprint down. But I wanted to show this example. If you notice the ceilings and so forth, because all we did in the end is we did all the transfer work on the look and feel with paints and a little bit of joinery that stuff that those display suites in the middle. We took out all the trophies and we landed it like a gallery. And then we told the story, as I said in the beginning, what do you want people to be directed to? We told the story and the history on the wall on the right with dates and we elaborate a bit. So we have it's critical for us that we do everything in-house because the story and the experience becomes incongruent at times when we start farming stuff out. So everything we do is in-house. And then just the only thing we built there, I think, was that fireplace. The rest is just, it looks like there's layers within the paint, within the ceilings and so forth, that they're not really. And then I added this slide really on the left-hand side because as the patrons walked back in, they said, "Shoo, you built all these ceilings." All we did was we really highlighted what they were with lights, and we made them pop. So again, I'm not showing any of these because they massively design worthy, but because they had a massive impact on the behavior of the patrons. And so those are like 4 areas which they in testing over 3 years. So the markers show the uptake and the satisfaction of the patrons. So where it was previously like 3.5 on average, it ranged from that to just over 4. It's now in the very high 4. So massive uptake in patrons, which meant we got a lot bigger footfall, much longer dwell time. So the conversion rates on the restaurant and on the bar was bigger, and most importantly, a lot of new members. So obviously, golf clubs run on those things. Members are a massive part of it. So massive conversion on that. And then Coffee Club is a video somewhere that's going to catch you off guard. Let me just go through this again. And I put these slides in on purpose because brands suffer from the same things. If you take the noise that the client comes with a massive problem set, but when you break it down, it really most often comes down to these basic things that you have to solve. And that's what we inherited really. We've done, I think, Rob, 120 stores, or Calvin, sorry, 130 stores, or thereabouts. Monique, thanks. But we started really with this idea. So what's the basic? Now, a brand has a problem in that they always have a brand color, a brand story, a brand front identity for the signage, and then they multiply this over multiple sites. And we said it's not important. It's important how you feel when you see it. It's very important how the franchise partner feels when they buy into it. They have multiple personalities. They're all different. So we developed, well, we said, well, we can make this old man cool again. We're not going to give him a facelift. We're just going to frame him in light. So we developed a lot of artwork and artwork based in the 80s because it's a time that young people understand. And it's also a time that the older generation lived through and they're comfortable in their space. So the artwork was really there for them to choose from, so they can choose from this booklet of art pieces what they want in their store. And then we developed, if you this it's quite uncanny. I don't want to reverse because we don't have time, but it's exactly the same structure. Again, we transfer the only thing we put in here are the hanging lights, the rest is all paints, artwork. And the ceiling is again the way we lit it and colored it. And we said, okay, there's a way that yellow works and a way that blue works, and they all have different impacts on us. So we created various looks within the same identity that they could then choose from. So there's yellow and green, yellow and blue, and then this one a little bit more sophisticated, but all around the same bones. So the franchise partner could choose the one that felt most comfortable for them. We developed since another two or three, but these were the primary ones. And I think it's going to go into a video in a moment. There we go. So I just wanted to illustrate really how there was quite a varied palette, but the identity of the brand stayed static, stayed the same. So if you look at the brands rolled out, you can see that it's a coffee club, although a lot of the markers are quite different. And so there's some of the numbers. So what we did in this particular one, we know that when, especially with multiple brands, I said it, the ones that can afford it, the least need it the most. But also that when you shut a store down, people that go to these multiple brands, these QSRs, it's a home for them. And they go there multiple times, 2 or 3 times a week. And as soon as you shut it down, they find another home and you get 10 to 15% that never come back. They're in the new home. So we wanted to avoid that. So we developed a trade through model that could build it in 2 weeks and very uh, easy to identify problem sets with budget ranging from 50 to $250,000, depending on the needs base. So they could actually work out a very specific business case. And so we had a massive jump. You can see that in the trade through, and then the week post reno, and then right up to 4 weeks post, almost 40%. So that is for us the most important thing. If we can get those numbers to work, doesn't matter, what's another opinion may be, that means the people that we design it for actually find it appealing. And then the last one, Hunter and Barrel, I put this one in because it's a little bit on the front end in terms of a differentiator in terms of its category. It's not QSR, it's not fast food, it's casual dining. And we've done 11 of them. And again, in this particular site, just to illustrate how to do more with less, because that's critical as a designer to understand the parts that you need and the parts that you can do with that's there. What was problem with this particular site? It had two failed prior restaurants, of which one was exceptionally famous. And so it's a negative connotation. Sites are the most important for any F&B. So we were up against that. It was a heritage site, so problematic in terms of what we could and couldn't do. And then very cabinet space, again, low budget. In fact, I don't think anybody comes to us with a big budget. They don't say, blow my money. Not in any design situation, really, do they? So that's the space that we inherited. So you can see the chandeliers and then the beautiful lights against the walls. And so we had ceilings, floors, walls, problematic in terms of what we could and couldn't do. So we spent a lot of time in the site to understand what the problem was. And what we found really is that the scavengers size of it, along with the fact that no, we are hardwired to want to sit in cocoon spaces. Think about when you go to a restaurant, you sit with your back against the wall, or if you can in a booth, that's the primary area, because you feel safe in it. We're hardwired to have that to keep us safe as a vantage point where we can see more than be seen. So all of this was exposed. Everything here screamed against what we're hardwired for. So we identified, you can see that in the two red dots. Underneath two of these lights, we said, if you go out camping, so it is called Hunt and Barrel, but obviously we're not going to frame that kind of hunting theme, but rather the outdoors. The kind of traditional tents, the romantic tent structure in kind of a calico material, and to bookend the essential space to sit in, to make it more cocooned in the center, create bench seating in the heart of it and around the perimeter. And what we ended up with was this. So it's exactly the same walls again. We didn't change it. But we created these oversized, quite dramatic, tented structures that form the entrance portal to the central seating. So it's quite a beautiful thing to walk through there, because that's the only place way you can enter it. And then on the inside, there's art that we created that tells a story of outdoors and nature. And you can see along the walls, we created all those art pieces. I think how many pieces? 30 or 40? I forget. That we created that were pinned into the wall so that they wouldn't have a heritage issue. And we had no heritage problems because everything's really set off the walls. And so just some examples of the arts depicting various places in and around Adelaide that people know. And so we oversized them as well. So some of them are quite large. You can see them there. They're probably 2 by 5 meters in the central one. Um, and left really the structure in place, the ceilings in place, the lights are in place. We developed a central kind of booth space to kind of hug people. And then we stitched all of those art pieces together and turned up the saturation on the color. And we use that as a storytelling on the bench seats. But again, on this particular one, we're not at liberty to reveal the numbers, but I can tell you that the specific clients of the 20 restaurants we sold last year, we did 19. And the average net return on those are 20% and up. So it's massive for food and beverage space, and it's massive because there are only three parts in a hospitality space that you can actually three levers. It's food, it's the food product, it's service, and it's how the space looks. And as designers, we are so responsible to frame those other two. If we don't do it properly, then those other two fall flat as well. Just another picture of a pause space in the beginning as you enter, and then just the way the light kind of dappled in at lunchtime. We wanted to keep that because we are more comfortable in natural light, and it's just a beautiful picture of that on the left. So to my point of 20%, that's the truth in hospitality. It's a 2-cent truth. People take 2 cents out of every dollar, which is crazy. That's what it's boiled down to. In hospitality, people struggle to make money. And this slide is quite revealing. So 1 in 10 close down is the number one industry with the highest failure rates. It's crazy. And 57% insolvency in the 24-25 financial year. So diving back again to what I said earlier in terms of what we do and what's critical for us, we spend a lot of time. We're busy with a restaurant in Dubai. Now, I think on average, the Dubai restaurants take 2 years because we spend a lot of time going there and back and sitting and redoing and reading and testing because you have one go. If you put it in and it doesn't work, it shuts down. So it really boils down to this. As I said prior, design is about understanding that the client is spending money and most often kind of their life savings into it. And we have a responsibility to guard it and ensure that the money they spend with us allows them to make money, not just money, but have a decent lifestyle. And that's really the line between viable and closed. So I want to leave you with that. I think just to touch some of those levers as quickly as my time finished. Just touch one or two of those levers. So the stuff that we look at, for example, the weight and texture of a chair impacts the length of the stay. Think of a QSR, fast food. It's a light chair. You can probably kick it around, make some noise. You can lift it with one hand. Fine dining, the more fine it gets, the heavier the chair. Where the light goes, the money flows. Think of the back of a bar. The bar products lit beautifully. It entices you to buy. Round tables in a bar works far better than in a restaurants. They need to be at 650, not 750, not 450, because that's the height that we sit at more or less when people walk past and places are tighter. Fast music makes people stay in a bar longer than in a restaurant. In restaurants, vice versa, quicker. So there are 101 of these levers that we push and pull the whole time to nudge people to behave in a certain way. And it's not manipulation because the people go there because they have a much better time. They enjoy it much more. They want to be there. And the client wins in the end because they have the turnover that they need. So we design your space for performance. That's really, I think, the bottom line and what I think designers, especially now in this day and age, are responsible for more and more. Thank you.